Welcome to VU Sports Wired. We're back from our one-week hiatus over spring break. I'm Ben Weinrib.
I'm Max Harris.
Just a quick rundown for you guys. We're going to start off with a not-so-great end to the season for the men's basketball team and then look ahead to the very exciting LSU baseball season, or series coming up this weekend. Go to some Eastern Illinois baseball highlights. Talk about the end of the women's basketball season, which didn't end up much better than the men's team. Go to the bowling team and then just Commodore Spotlight overall. So the big story, at least from last night, was Vanderbilt's men's basketball team lost 82-68 to Mississippi State, a team that they had beaten earlier in the year. And it was really put a damper on the season that looked like it had some promise, even after they got down to that magnificent 7.
Yeah, since we were last with you, the men's basketball team lost a couple of regular season games to limp into the SEC tournament and forcing them to play in what really is a play-in game, finishing with the 11 seed, playing against the 14 seed Mississippi State last night. Final score there, as you can see, Bulldogs 82, Commodores 68. Commodores unable to advance past the preliminary round of the SEC tournament, 100% eliminating all NIT hopes for sure. So this was really not a good way for the Commodores to end the year, to end the careers of Rod Odom, Kyle Fuller, and Rob Cross, of course.
Rob Cross, 1 minute, of course.
But not a good effort from this Commodore team last night, and there was the only player who we could pick on for playing well in this game and putting up big numbers was Dejon Parker.
Yeah, I guess the thing that we thought earlier in the season was that these heavy minutes for these 7 players who were playing a lot, specifically Rod Odom, Dejon Parker, and Kyle Fuller, all guys who were playing 40 minutes per game, that's all 40 minutes, they really slowed down at the end of the season. Rod Odom scoring slowed down a bit. Kyle Fuller even got benched in the last 2 games for walk-on Carter Josephs, who Stallings likes because he likes to sort of slow down the team, and you don't want to run these 7 players too much. But this was definitely a disappointing end, and when you looked at the SEC sort of bracket, it was a pretty easy draw, all things considered. SEC hasn't been especially strong, but they were going to avoid Florida till the end. They were going to go Mississippi State, Mississippi, Georgia, which was Georgia's probably the weakest of the 3 top 4 seeds, considering they got doubled up by Tennessee, and Kentucky's extremely talented even if they're not playing that well. But it's just disappointing overall. They lost 8 of the last 10 games. Just not looking good, really. Yeah,
in order to win the tourney, Vandy was probably only going to have to beat 1 ranked team in order to claim the SEC tournament crown. And yes, it seemed unlikely, but it was definitely possible. And just to come out against a team in Mississippi State that went 3-15 in conference play this year and really come out flat, be bad from the beginning, be trailing the whole way, and lose by double digits is not the way Kevin Stallings hoped for his team to go out. Not the way Rod Odom envisioned his final SEC tournament going. And really just poor effort on all parts from this men's basketball team. Even though Dejon Parker put up a lot of points, he wasn't leading the team. He was just kind of scoring by himself. And there was not a lot of fight that we saw in this team. We saw the starting lineup change, as you mentioned. Josephs and Cornette got in there. And just this team was deflated because of all those extra minutes, I think, as you said.
Yeah, so the good news, at least looking forward to next year, is they're going to have a lot more numbers. They're going to lose really 2 players, Fuller and Odom. But the good news is they're going to be getting back Keidron Johnson, probably, who has a pretty good chance of becoming an all-SEC point guard. They got 4 big recruits coming in. They've got 4-star guys, Wade Baldwin, Michael Fisher-Davis from Charlotte, North Carolina, of course. Riley LaChance, and then a new guy. They got a new small forward. So they've got a lot more bodies, especially at guard, where they only had 2 scholarship players last year. And then for whatever you want to say about Josh Henderson, they'll get an extra body back there, assuming he can stay healthy at all.
Yeah, Josh Henderson definitely going to be useful in what will likely be his senior season, depending upon a medical redshirt decision. We're no cluing how long he'll stick around. But Josh Henderson will be back. Him and Damian Jones will be a solid duo, each receiving big minutes at the center position. Damian Jones had taken the starting job from Josh Henderson pretty early in the year before Henderson went down with a torn ACL. But they'll be splitting a lot of minutes next year. Damian Jones will definitely be looking to refine his game over the offseason as he picked up some late season honors, which we'll get to a little bit later on in the show. But definitely those bodies coming back, 4 freshmen coming in, Henderson returning from injury, Johnson returning from suspension. We don't know that for sure, but definitely will be up from 7 regulars next year for the Commodore basketball team.
Yeah, and to be fair, this season's 15-16 record was a little better than last year's, and that's even considering they lost McClellan midway through the season, Henderson, and they were really only down to 7 players. So all things considered, this was probably a better season than most people could have hoped for, considering everything. So next season should be, there's a good chance they could be better, even though they'll be losing 2 of their senior players. But one team that's been playing better than basketball by a long shot has been Vanderbilt's baseball team. And SEC play opens up this weekend with a big matchup against number 8 LSU. Vanderbilt's ranked number 7. Depending on who you look at, there's about like 16 different baseball polls, so we'll just settle on 7 versus 8. We've got a big matchup to start off. It's Tyler Beede, the Golden Spikes finalist, versus Aaron Nola, the SEC Pitcher of the Year.
Yeah, both guys are 4-0 coming into the game. Tyler Beede and Aaron Nola, there you see their numbers. Tyler Beede's ERA just over 1. Aaron Nola's ERA a clean 0. No earned runs yet this year allowed for Nola. So 2 strong right-handers. Both are projected to be taken in the top 15 of the MLB draft this summer. Both junior pitchers, both just absolutely in command, best players on their teams. And I'm worried maybe a little bit about this Vandy offense going up against Aaron Nola, who's been so dominant this year, yet to allow an earned run. On the verge of a record there as well for most scoreless innings without an earned run to start the season. So we'll see if the Commodore offense can get on track against Nola. We'll see if Tyler Beede can hold set and continue pitching as well as he has in what is just the first game of an incredible weekend series between 2 top 10 teams.
Yeah, as you were mentioning, Nola has 43 innings without giving up an earned run. The record's 50, so we could potentially see that record at least tied or even broken. Although this Commodore offense has been putting up runs lately. The big difference between Nola and Beede is Beede has exceptional stuff. He's pitching up to 96, touching a little bit of 97 I've seen, and has these great off speeds. Nola, on the other hand, is more of a command guy who can absolutely pinpoint where he wants to put the ball. Obviously both really good guys, and we're going to see all sorts of scouts, scouting directors, potentially even GMs showing up to Friday's game. So if you want to meet some important people in baseball, this is the game to go to. And even the other 2 games in the series are going to be really good. The big player to watch for LSU besides Nola is sophomore Alex Bregman. He's a shortstop who was an All-American as a freshman. He was drafted by the Red Sox out of high school, and he's hitting .429 this year. So he's a big guy to watch out for Beede and all the rest of the guys.
Yeah, definitely some potential future major league hitters on both sides for this series, but the pitching is not going to drop off very much from Nola and Beede throughout the weekend. The combined ERA of the 6 starting pitchers expected to pitch for the 2 teams this weekend is 5.40, and that is a combined ERA for 6 pitchers. That includes Nola's 0. Jared Miller is at 0.36 right now for his earned run average. So some great pitchers are going to be thrown this weekend. Runs are going to be at a premium. SEC baseball is going to be at its best early in the season. So definitely do your best to come out to at least 1 or 2 of these games if you can, because these are 2 of the best teams in college baseball. Maybe the 2 best pitchers in college baseball are going to be going Friday night. That's debatable. But
yeah, well,
it's going to be a fun weekend for Vandy baseball, and we're going to learn a lot about this team.
Yeah, we've seen young guys like Brian Reynolds step up a lot. He's been bouncing between the number 2 and number 5 hitter. We've seen Dansby Swanson has taken leaps and bounds now that he's finally healthy.
I think he's the best player on this team.
Yeah, definitely. Between how well he's hitting and how well he can field, he's probably a better shortstop than Vinny, although it's hard to switch around Vince Conde around too much. But X has been hitting better now that his elbow's healed, and Xander Wheel's just been dropping bombs. So, we'll see the highlights from Eastern Illinois in a little bit, but this Vandy team looks a lot better than even some of us thought at the beginning of the year. There's not too many of these struggles from the young guys, but maybe that's something we'll see headed into SEC play.
Yeah, 16-2 record for Vanderbilt right now. LSU also just a few blemishes on their record. And when Nola is on the mound and when Beede is on the mound, these two teams have been absolutely unbeatable. So somebody's got to lose. I think we could see neither team scoring more than one run through 8 innings until these starters are chased. But it's going to be really fun to watch these guys play. Vandy has been heating up as late. You'll see against Eastern Illinois, the offense really turned it on late in that game. And it's been a fun season so far for Vandy, but I sure am ready for the competition level to increase in LSU.
Yeah, the one big advantage Vanderbilt has here is their bullpen's a lot more deep. Not just Brian Miller, not just Carson Fulmer. It's Adam Ravenel, Hayden Stone, Stephen Rice is back. There's a lot of guys that throw hard, a lot of guys that can get a lot of strikeouts. And if you can get past 6 or 7 innings, this is a Vanderbilt team that's hard to score on in the late innings. So even if you chase Tyler Beede or Jared Miller, Tyler Ferguson, there's a lot of arms waiting for LSU.
Yeah, I think we'll see Nola pitch a lot deeper into the game than Beede, just because that Vanderbilt bullpen is so great. Corbin has been saying that he's not hesitant to pull his guys early, his starting pitchers, even though they've been great, just because the bullpen has been elite. So I think we could see Beede maybe go out a little earlier than we expect in this game and maybe see Nola outpitch him in terms of innings.
All right, so now we're going to go check out some highlights from the Eastern Illinois game from earlier in the week.
From Tuesday night at Hawkins Field, it's the Vanderbilt Commodores and the Eastern Illinois Panthers in the Commodores' final non-conference game before starting SEC play this coming Friday against LSU. Let's go to the highlights. Walker Buehler on the hill for the Doors. Here he gets Caleb Howell swinging in the first, but then he runs into trouble as Frankie Perrone hits an absolute bomb over the scoreboard in left field to put Eastern Illinois up 1-0 in the 3rd inning. Commodore offense in net to this point, but Walker Buehler is still dealing. He gets Tyler Schweigert here, and then he gets revenge on Perrone with a swing on a pitch way out of the zone. Then in the 5th inning, Dansby Swanson battles through a 9-pitch at-bat, smacks a single to center field with 2 down in the 5th to give Vandy a 2-1 lead. Next batter, Brian Reynolds, jumps on the first pitch he sees, drives in Swanson, and it's 3-1 Vandy just like that, still with 2 outs in the 5th. Xander Wheel pops one up to shallow right field, advances to second on what would be a double. Brian Reynolds stops at third, putting 2 men in scoring position for Xavier Turner. Commodores doing great things with 2 outs here. Turner put on intentionally, loading the bases for Rhett Wiseman, who hits a 2-run single into center field as the EIU center fielder is way out of position here. This puts Vandy up 5-1. Runners on the corners then for Vince Conde, who reaches on an error by the shortstop, bringing another run in. 6-1 Commodores, all with 2 outs. Nolan Rogers draws a walk, and Jason DeLay grounds a single into left field, bringing in 2 more runs as Vince Conde slides in safely at home. And just like that, it's 8-1 Vandy, 8 straight base runners, no outs for the Commodores. First batter of the next inning hits a home run against Walker Buehler. Mitch Gasbaro, the Panther player there, who goes yard, cutting it to 8-2. Stephen Rice now in relief, draws a double play to complete his first inning of the season. Bottom of the inning, Xander Wheel makes it 9-2 Vandy as he drives in Reynolds. Wheel advances to third on a pair of stolen bases, and Xavier Turner knocks him in with a double. And just like that, it's 10-2 Commodores. Brian Miller on the mound in the top of the 9th, up 11-2, and he gets Adam Kaysen to fly to right field to end the ball game. Commodores win 11-2 on this Tuesday night at Hawkins Field. Breaking out the throwback jerseys, breaking out the bats as well. You see that 8-run 5th. Huge inning for the Commodores. All 8 of those runs scored with 2 outs, sparked by Dansby Swanson's 9-pitch at bat, which ended with a nice single to center field. Walker Buehler, 7 strikeouts, no walks in the ball game. Good performance from him. 4 scoreless from the bullpen, including the season debut of Stephen Rice. All in all, if you exclude the first 4 innings of hitting, a great all-around effort from the Commodores heading into conference play this Friday against LSU.
All right, thanks for those highlights. We're going to now look more at the women's basketball team, whose season also came to an end. We're going to also welcome to the desk Matt Sitek. So now the women's team had lost 8 of the last 10 heading into the postseason, and ended up losing in the first round of the SEC Women's Tournament to Georgia by a pretty good margin, which is not exactly the way they want to end the season, especially considering they were up to about 15th in the poll early in the year. So again, another disappointing end to the basketball season for a Vanderbilt team. So what do you see there, Matt?
Yeah, so kind of confusing what happened to the women's team this year. As of January 19th, they beat the then-ranked number 14 LSU team. It was a close game, but they came out victorious. And since then, they've just lost 9 of their last 11 games, including this last game against Georgia to end the season. And I don't really know what happened to them. It's kind of confusing. The men's team, the whole season, you can kind of tell it was going to be a disappointing season. The women's team, though, they've been playing so well throughout the whole season. They beat UT, a potential number 1 seed in the tournament. They beat A&M. They beat some ranked teams throughout the season, and then all of a sudden they had one close game against South Carolina, and then it just seemed like their season just fell apart from there.
Yeah. Now, of course, they had a really bad draw in the SEC women's tournament. They played their first game was against Georgia, who they'd handled before, but ended up losing by 10 points to. The second round game would have been against number 1 seed South Carolina with SEC Player of the Year Tiffany Mitchell. But this is a team that should have done a lot better and at least kept the Georgia game close. Of course, we know there's Christina Fogge, who's gotten some postseason honors from different basketball sites around, and Jasmine Lister, the other senior leader. But beyond that, there weren't enough other players on the team who stepped up. And that's what the team needed, is that third player every game. And that's really where they've struggled towards the end of the season.
Yeah, Christina Fogge really carried the team. She ended up the season averaging about 19 points. And one little bit of good news is she did end the season being Vanderbilt's all-time leader in three-pointers, which is a pretty cool and awesome feat for her, so congrats to her. But besides that, it's kind of a disappointing ending to the season. Consensus is the women's team will probably still, or potentially still, make the tournament, maybe as a number 10 or 11 seed, but judging from the way they've been playing lately, I don't know if there's much to really look forward to.
Yeah, especially considering how lowly they were ranked in the SEC alone. They were the 8th seed, and how they ended the season. It's sort of, at least in my opinion, it'd probably be tough to justify putting them in. Although, of course, we'll root for them and break down even more basketball for you if they are so lucky enough to get one of those rankings. You know, it's tough. They're probably one of the best 64 teams, or 68, whatever number we're at. But when you have all these mid-majors that sort of sneak into the tournament by winning their conference, it's tough to get in there, even if you are one of those best 68 teams.
Yeah.
So the bowling team, unlike the women's basketball team, has good news for us. They bowled 300. The team got a perfect score, ended up beating number 1 Arkansas State, which is, well, at least, it's a pretty amazing accomplishment.
It is. I mean, it's kind of unheard of. You don't really hear that often of anyone or even a team rolling a combined 300, but our team did. They seem to be the pride of our school right now.
Yeah.
They have the one national championship our school has won, and as of right now, they're waiting to hear back to see if they will make the final 8 to compete for the national championship again this year in April.
Yeah, so that 300 they bowled was in the championship game of the Columbia 300 Music City Classic. So that's not just even in a practice round. That was against a really good team in Arkansas State. So it's nice to see them stepping up their game against a top opponent.
Yeah, it's good to see at least one Vanderbilt sport doing well right now.
Yeah. So moving on to the Commodore Spotlight. Men's basketball team got some good news to end their season. They had 2 players who got postseason honors. Rod Odom got second team All-SEC as one of the few forwards to make the team. And then Damian Jones was the lone center to make the all-freshman team. There were 2 Kentucky players, which was a lot less than people expected to start the year, considering they were supposed to be the best recruiting class of all time. And of course, I bought into the hype, but as we've seen this season, they haven't played up to that expectation. But good news for the freshman out of Baton Rouge. He's a guy who's averaging 11 points, almost 6 rebounds per game, really stepped it up now that he got a starting role at the end of the year. He's a guy that we're going to look forward to seeing a lot more from next year.
Yeah, so coming into the season, I think a lot of people expected Rod Odom to end up the season with some sort of award, as he was our best player throughout the year. We knew he was going to be our best player entering the season. Damian Jones was a bit of a surprise, though, and I'm really excited to see him next year and for the rest of his time at Vanderbilt. He's going to turn into a very, very good center. I think he could potentially be one of the best big men in the SEC next year. He just had some games, flashes of absolute dominance, just against various really good, talented big men at other schools. It's Kentucky, Florida, and I'm just really looking forward to seeing him play again next year.
Yeah, the interesting thing about the SEC is there's rarely very many good big men. I mean, this year we saw Jarnell Stokes from Tennessee, we saw Julius Randle from Kentucky. But besides that, there's not very many big teams. So you can have a big man like Damian Jones that's a good way to be able to win games, especially if you can win the rebounding battle, which Vanderbilt's had problems with Josh Henderson out and very few bodies. But he's a big guy moving forward to look for.
Yeah, and it'll be nice to see him paired up with Josh Henderson next year. I think our rebounding is going to improve a lot next year with 2 7-footers on the court at the same time.
Yeah.
Moving on, tennis team, we have some good news. Gonzalez Austin, or AJ, and Ryan Lippman have just been named the #1 doubles team in the country. It's a tremendous feat. I'm proud of them. They are playing Ole Miss tomorrow at the Tennis Center, 4 p.m. I hope everyone can come out and support them. Them and the baseball team both playing around the same time, I know, but both of them are big, talented Vanderbilt teams. They both need our support. So try to make it out to the Tennis Center tomorrow to root on AJ and Ryan and the rest of the team as they try to take down Ole Miss.
Yeah. So then for our first women's lacrosse update of the year, they had a pretty good last week. They went all the way to Palo Alto to face number 13 Stanford and beat them in overtime, which is a really big feat, especially on the road. They followed that up by playing number 18 Denver and lost barely. They lost 10-8, but that's a really good turnaround for a team that won just 2 games last year. Friend of the program, Mackenzie Smith, has been trying to boost them up for us to talk about them. So there's your shout out. So that'll do it for us this week at BU Sports Wired. For Matt Sytak and the rest of us here, I'm Ben Weinerb, and we'll see you next week.